better. And joining us right now on Ben and Woods, the skipper of the San Diego Padres in L.A., facing the Dodgers tonight. Mike Shildt is with us. Skip, it's good to have you back on the show. Good morning.
What's up, my dudes? How you doing?
We're good. We're good. And let's start since we talked to you last Friday. There was a bit of a notable comeback between then and now. What a game that was on Monday against the Cubs to fall behind like that and have your team come back. What was your perspective from the dugout to see that at Petco Park, see the crowd getting more and more excited as you went on that 7-run rally in the 6th inning, and then when Fernando Tatis Jr. hit the go-ahead home run and the place just went absolutely crazy. Just some of the manager's thoughts on that game.
Yeah, it was a special game, clearly. It was great that the fans were rightfully excited and into it and passionate as they are, got some love themselves and some reward for their encouragement of us, and it was just fantastic the way the guys competed. And of course, Fernando put the final touch on it. But you're down 8-0, and guys could have easily gone, all right, just not our night, and cash it in. But really stepped up and competed, regardless of circumstance, which is a great trait. And Crony got us going with a non-pitch homer. It was a great at bat, and kind of took it from there. It was a fantastic way to celebrate the 20th anniversary of Petco.
It was incredible. I mean, I was about to turn it in for the night. It's got to get up early, 4:00 in the morning, and I said I'm gonna ride this one out, see if they show me anything. And boy, did they ever, Skip. Wanted to ask you about the next night, Joe Musgrove and you, Darvish. I guess that night they've scuffled. Now it's hard, right? You're the manager, and you're like, oh man, we had a really nice run through the rotation. Mm-hmm. The rotation seeming to get locked in, and then you can't find it. Joe can't find it. You got to go to your bullpen early. How are those guys doing, and kind of what do you make of that?
Well, I make that the other side's trying to, and they just looked early on were sharp and just couldn't keep going. But what I make of it, not a whole lot in regards to the big picture of it. Joe's a stud, as we all know. He's a pro's pro and, accomplished guy. So both those guys are going to be just fine. They feel good, and they're chomping the bit for their next outing.
As fans, I think we tend to ride more of even an emotional roller coaster sometimes than you guys do or the players do. But one thing that was frustrating from our perspective last season was seemingly like, 12 runs, 2 runs, 8 runs, no runs, and saw a bit of it this week. Obviously it worked out. You guys bounced back with the big performance on Wednesday against the Cubs. Do you see anything there, though? Is there anything to, you call it a lack of consistency, or is that in your mind just kind of how baseball works?
I think that's more along the line. Look, we want to be as consistent as possible all the time. So let's start there. We want and expect to have a consistent offense that's going to be able to score, 4 to 5 runs every night, which more than puts you in a position on most nights to win games. So let's just be clear about that. Let's also look and evaluate the body of work to this point. And, there's a lot of different metrics that evaluate your offense, rightfully so. But you look at them and you recognize, this has been over the course of the first 15 games, rather, a top 10 offense. And you say, well, you score 10 runs, that's an outlier. You score 2, that can be an outlier. We scored 2 multiple times and came up on the short side of it and recognized that during those games that we got to capture some of the moments. So all those are positives. The other thing I'll say, without ever making an excuse, because that's not really a part of our gig, but also being realistic is, hitting's the hardest thing to do in the world.
Yep.
And it's more of a challenge now. I love our approach, love what we're doing, but the fact of the matter is, I've done this job before and studied our game, and I can tell you that rightfully so, I understand the emotion tied to it. The hunger to compete every day to win as a team, and of course our fan base. But I got to tell you, there's probably 20 other markets that managers have somewhere calls. And just because, the nature of the hitting relative to the pitching, the stuff that's coming out now, the awareness of how to the attack plans, the clarity of positioning, all those things lead to it being more of a challenge to hit now than the specialization of how guys are used in pitching. It's just more of a challenge to be consistent to have those 4 to 5 runs every night. And but I do feel like we're going in a right direction. I think we've proven that.
Talking to the skipper, Mike Shildt, here on Ben and Woods this morning. And, yeah, it pains me, honestly, when Ha-seong Kim makes an error because I know how good he is. And I know that you moved him to short because he is a better defender. He is the best option, in my opinion, at shortstop that we have. And I know you feel the same way. For a player like him who literally cares so much and he always gives every bit of himself, almost too much. I mean, sometimes I'm like, hey, you got to dial it back. We got a long season. He doesn't have a dial back mode. How hard has he taken his defensive performances lately? And what do you say to a guy like that that's going through one of those scuffles where, let's be honest, he's probably happy when the ball gets hit to third or second for a minute, until he can get back on his feet.
Yeah, I think he probably still wants the ball. Again, looking at it from a big picture, you look at it from the first 14 games, he's still a top-rated shortstop relative to any metric you want to see. That being said, he'd be the first to, like you say, takes it hard. He cares a ton. And he wants to do well for a lot of reasons. And so he had made a few plays. And, the last ball that, got to him and the other day was, it came off like just different. Not only in the velocity of the way it came off, but just the kind of the hop it took. So it's hard to him to be in rhythm, but he'll be the first to tell you got to make that play. And so, what do you say to him? Keep going. You doing all right? Yep, doing fine. Believe in you 100%. And, 9th inning, 2 outs, bases loaded, 1-run game. I want the ball hit to you.
Yeah.
So, and he'll, and we do. So he'll be just fine. And, but he does care a tremendous amount, and, just don't want to make anything bigger than what it is.
We've seen some pregame throws across the diamond from Manny Machado this week as he works toward returning to third base. I think even more importantly, we've seen a lot of swings that look very Manny Machado-like. Have you noticed a difference, Mike, in Manny the last a week or so?
I have, yeah. I think he's getting back to being in a good place. I mentioned this somewhat recently. If you think about Manny, first of all, the good indicator is, he's driving the ball all over the field. Driving the ball into right center. He's done that a fair amount this year, but, did it again the other day. Getting on the high fastball, which means he feels good to be able to get to it in the appropriate manner and be freed up to do so. So those are all good signs. He's on the mend, physically and in a couple of different ways with his swing, and not only, and of course, his elbow. He is throwing across the bases. He's starting to, feel even better about that. He's starting to get good carry that we expect out of Manny, and he's starting to feel good and recover well, which is equally important, so he can take the next steps. But you think about it, this guy's playing in Major League Baseball games as clearly our DH and hitting, but very few times are you playing in the same during the same period of time you're still rehabbing. So he's in two different worlds, right? He's playing Major League Baseball, and he's still in a rehabilitation process, and that's fairly unique. And he's handling it well, and he's getting on the other side of it.
And how much? Because we hear it all the time from ex-players. In fact, players that have played with Manny. How much does that do for? Because I'll see fans from time to time, and I try not to get in the weeds with it, but. You see fans, well, he's actually hurting the team. If he's not swinging it well and he can't play defense, he's hurting the team. But the fact that he goes, gets treatment, tries to take care to make sure that he's on the field, how much does that go for the other players? The guy, he makes a lot of money, right? And he takes pride in wanting to win. How far does that go with the other players, seeing Manny go out there and try to grind through injury?
Yeah, listen, if he was like injured and he couldn't perform and he he would be the first to say, I'm not gonna attempt to compete, nor would we put him in that position. So, his teammates always appreciate the fact this guy posts, because he's a guy that over his career has done just that. He's not a guy that looks to take any days off. He doesn't have a history of ILs. Unfortunately, he had a first real medical issue he's had in his career. And I can tell you with confidence he's played through some different things. That's what players do. They figure out a way to get through it and perform, which he's done his whole career. So, it's important that he continues to do that. It shows his teammates that he clearly cares, but he's not out there, with the limitations that doesn't allow him to perform. And, Manny's helped his team. So, he's got some RBIs that, he's hit some homers that have been big for us. So he's helping. And he also is a guy you got a game plan in the lineup. So, his presence in the middle of the lineup, he's still Manny Machado, and he's, dangerous with the bat, and he's proven it multiple times this year. So, he's helped us in a lot of regards.
Dodgers tonight, this weekend, and he split with them in Korea. You know what? From my perspective, I feel like I've seen times with this particular the Padres where the Dodger series has meant a little too much. Like let's really focus and get up for it. And then I've seen the other way. Let's pretend that they're just exactly the same as every other team. These games are important, though. There's the team that you want to chase down always in this division. How do you approach kind of a regular season, normal weekend series, but it is against the Dodgers and it is up there at Dodger Stadium?
We can't ignore the fact it's a rival. There's competition. We're right down the road. We can't ignore that. We won't even try to ignore it. We'll actually embrace it. But personally, and we just play baseball, man. We're going to play regardless of who shows up on the schedule, and we're going to prepare to win the game regardless of who's on the schedule. We're going to compete again regardless of who the opponent is, and we're going to respect our opponent, and we're not going to make it any bigger than it is. Was it going to have a little more different energy playing in LA, in that stadium, and clearly we know and respect what they've been able to accomplish, but I think it's a real trap to make it anything bigger than it is, and it's really about how we compete. And if you look up at the end of the night, and we get after it for the whole entire game, and we have good offensive at bats and handle our situations and execute and play clean defensively and throw strikes and make our pitches. At the end of the day, we'll feel pretty good about being able to shake hands. And that's what our goal is every game against any opponent.
They do provide a unique challenge. Like I think your team does as well because, veteran pitchers will find guys in the lineup that they feel like I can get out. Tough to do, especially with the top of that Dodgers order with how good their players are. Just like it's tough to, face Tatis and Machado and now Jake's hitting so well in order. How do you kind of approach that when they do have such a dangerous, top 5, 6 in their order?
Yeah, well, that's the part that is a challenge, right? They've got really good players, and they're off to a really good start, and they're very established and know what they do. They've got cohesiveness to how they operate. They communicate well during the game. They see the game well. They make adjustments. You got to be on your game every night in the big leagues, but you really need to be able to, when you get challenged with other teams that execute, that have a real strong identity of who they are and are going to compete and have the talent, then you got to be on your game. And but we expect that every night. So, it's about execution, and is more of a challenge, just honestly, to execute against a high caliber club. Yeah, because they're trying to. But that's what we'll look to do, and that's what we expect to do.
Talking to the skipper, Mike Shildt. Last one for me, Skip. I want to talk, if you can, a little dicey maybe, about intent. When you're managing and you see one of your superstars, Fernando Tatis, he ended up on his butt a couple times late in the game on Wednesday. Any intent thought there? I know Padres fans were a little bit up in arms about Toddy continuing to get it kind of up and in, and boy, he made him pay the other night. When they went inside on him, and then he hung that slider and he hit it out of the yard. But a couple days later, or the next day, gets kind of brushed back a little bit. Your thoughts on the intent there?
I think I don't know what they show during the games. I don't go back and watch the games. They don't need to show me ever. But I've said my piece. I'm not going to run the field and start throwing blows yet. But I think I made it pretty clear in some circles. That we're not going to tolerate that. So we'll always defend our guy. But there's different ways that gets done. But there's been some dialogue that allows people to know we don't appreciate it.
Interesting. Well,
Yes.
have a good trip. Let's see you back here next Friday. We'll talk to you next Friday, back in town next week, and good luck against the Dodgers and the Brewers coming up.
All right. Thank you very much. You have a good week.
Thank you, you too.
Mike Shildt, manager of the San Diego Padres, our manager's report, brought to you by San Diego County Credit Union. It's not big bank banking. It is.